Answers given on this show do not constitute legal advice and do not create an attorney-client relationship. For legal advice, you can call the office anytime at 1-800-DeWitt Law or interact with the show. All you got to do is just send us an email to ask@dewittlaw.com. That's ask@dewittlaw.com. Or you can also call and just leave your question in a voicemail by calling 407-53-MOSES. Every Sunday morning right here at 10 a.m., you'll learn how Florida's legal issues affect you with your host, Mo DeWitt of the DeWitt Law Firm. Mo will answer your questions to discuss the latest legal issues affecting the citizens of Central Florida. My name is Jay Edwards here with Mo DeWitt, and this is the DeWitt Law Review. What's going on, Mo? The holidays are almost here.
God, that's unbelievable.
I know, right?
We say the same thing every year, but they really did kind of sneak up on us, at least for me.
I feel like it went from spring to putting out Christmas decorations.
Yep, pretty
really
quickly.
Yeah,
pretty much overnight.
We were trying to make holiday plans for like New Year's, and I'm like, golly, already?
Be here next week.
Yeah,
Not quite.
Wow. All right, so let's get to some questions that we have. And again, if you've got a question that you want us to answer and get some advice from Mo, again, you can send your questions to ask@dewittlaw.com. All right, this comes to us from Dylan. He says, hey, guys, broke up with my girlfriend over the past weekend. We've only been dating for about 4 months or so, and she has informed me that she is pregnant. They live up in Volusia County, if that's relevant or not. Said she wants to have the baby. She lives with her family. She has no job. She's also on disability. I don't see how she can care for a child in her state. After long text conversations, I cannot convince her otherwise. Will I be responsible for this child? Do I have any say? I don't want to be involved with this in any way. What do I do? Well,
so sorry for laughing there. You don't really have a choice there. I mean, you can choose not to be involved in the child's life, but still financially, from a legal perspective, you're going to be responsible for child support.
You're on the hook, my friend.
You're on the hook, and she can make whatever decision she wants to make as far as that child goes. You saying you don't want to be involved is fine, but the court's going to say if you don't want to be involved, you're still going to be financially responsible.
Right.
So
yes, it's going to be the wallet, whether or not you're taking the kid to daycare and coaching t-ball or not. You're still going to be paying for the child.
Exactly.
Takes two to tango.
Yeah, it takes two to tango, and basically, you may say she doesn't have the financial ability or the ability to raise the child, but frankly, you did the deed, and the child may be born from that, and there's not much you can do about that.
He was hoping for a much different answer.
Yeah, I don't know what he was really hoping for, because I feel like it's a pretty obvious answer there, but
yeah,
hey,
it was worth a shot. Right?
Yeah, I guess, shot in the dark,
right?
Hoping I have some sort of secret there.
Aaron wants to know, I have a company that owes me money and they're refusing to pay, but they're based out of Missouri. Is that something that you can help with? How do
Missouri?
how do I go about collecting my money?
So that's going to depend on where the contract, if there's a contract first, where it says that the venue or the form of law clause is. So a lot of times when you enter into a contract with a company, whether it's, you're purchasing something from that company or a credit card company, usually it will say in the contract, if there's a lawsuit, where that lawsuit has to be brought, basically what forum that lawsuit has to be brought in. And so if the contract dictates that, even though it's a Missouri company, they may say you have to bring a lawsuit in Delaware. A lot of credit card companies say you have to bring the lawsuit in Delaware. Okay. And there was actually, kind of some case law that was made basically where even though the contract says that, the credit card companies a lot of times don't actually follow it. And so they would file a lawsuit here in Florida. Well, the statute of limitations here in Florida is very different than the statute of limitations in Delaware. I believe Delaware is a 1 or 2 year statute of limitations on credit card cases like that. I could be wrong. It's been a little while since I looked at that. But anyways, what was happening here is they would file here thinking they were within the statute of limitations. People would move to dismiss them back to Delaware, and then they couldn't refile because it was outside the statute of limitations. So anyways, the first thing to look at is, if the contract dictates it, if the contract says where the lawsuit has to be brought. If there is no contract or it doesn't say that, then you have to look at what we call subject matter jurisdiction and personal jurisdiction. Basically, what court is proper to bring the case in. Typically, if the company is from Missouri is doing business here in Florida, typically you can sue them here in Florida. The case from law school that we all learned is called international shoe, and it's basically, hey, if you're doing business there, they can sue you in that state, basically,
Okay.
if there's sufficient ties to the state, so on and so forth. You can't just pick a random state because obviously that would be an inconvenient forum for possibly both parties. Yeah, if there's no contract, then you're going to look at what court has jurisdiction, and typically it's going to be based on ties to that state if they're doing business in that state, so on and so forth.
I want to use international shoe in just some sort of conversation with my friends, just so I can have them look at me like I know what the heck
Yeah.
I'm talking
I
about.
mean, anytime anyone asks you any sort of question, you should just say, "Yeah, you know the international shoe case. It tells you all about it."
It'd be like, what are you talking about? Christian Dior? Is that
Yeah.
Louboutin? No, totally different international shoe. Okay. My teenage son was pulled over actually in a drive-through
Okay.
at a fast food restaurant and
That's always fun when you see that.
was pulled in behind it and was arrested for driving on a suspended license. He had no idea that he had outstanding fines, parking tickets, tolls, that type of thing that ended up catching up to him.
Okay.
Do we have any type of recourse on this, saying that he didn't know, even though we didn't know either, or any legal advice you can offer on this?
So there's two types of driving while license suspended charges. There's one that's with knowledge and one that's without knowledge.
Okay.
And with knowledge is obviously worse. So, first you have to look at what kind, if they provide you sufficient notice that the license was suspended. So that's just going to be a factual determination as far as, when did they mail the notice? Where did they mail the notice? Have they mailed the notice yet? Of course they're going to mail it to the address on your driver's license. So if you didn't update your address, that may be your own fault there.
Right.
That may not be a defense. But if the notice was just mailed out or wasn't received yet, that may be a defense to the actual notice part of the charge, which may drop it down to without knowledge, which is a much less severe crime. They're both misdemeanors,
Mhm.
but one is less severe than the other. So that would be the first thing to look at. Now you'd also want to look at were these tickets legitimately gathered or were they improperly put on his license? I've had cases before where people paid the tickets, but they just didn't get recorded properly and their license got suspended. So, obviously, depending on what happened here, what the facts are, is going to make a difference in how the outcome is.
Can I tell you that that's, I think, one of my biggest fears, if not my biggest fear in life?
Yeah.
It's just, maybe you roll through a stop sign, you get pulled over, and they come up and they're like, step out of the car. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
for what? I had no idea. Like, honestly, I'll check every now and again, just do like a license check just to make sure that I'm good, because that's my biggest fear. And this is somebody's teenage kid, it sounds like, got arrested, like
Yeah.
put in handcuffs in the back of a car.
Yeah. Actually, in college, a buddy of mine, he got a ticket, he paid the ticket, but they didn't record that it was paid.
Oh, God.
And so he got pulled over by I think it was a campus police officer and got arrested. And they took him down to the Atlanta jail. And his father, who actually lived in Atlanta as well, was out of town. So he called a buddy of ours and we had to get 10 people together to pool our money to get his bail of $3,000 because we're college kids. We don't have-
Right. Yeah.
So, and the dad was like, I'll be there in 3 days. I'll pay you all back, yada, yada. And he did. But we all went down to the Atlanta jail with our pile of cash, which has to be exact change, and bailed the kid out. And yeah, it was all just completely not a misunderstanding. It was their fault. They just
Right.
did not record that he had paid the ticket. He did nothing wrong, but obviously still a royal pain for everybody.
What do you do in that situation if you're wrongfully, is that a lawsuit? Like somebody, because
Not really.
that's it's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. But they do grant law enforcement some level of latitude there, and errors do happen in life.
Right.
That's not something where it's motive. There's not ill intent there on law enforcement's behalf.
Mm.
It's just a clerical error, and unfortunately, those happen in life, and they get fixed. But usually, in those kinds of cases, there's not really a lawsuit to be had.
Gotcha. I know we just recently went through another storm.
Yeah.
We finally got through Ian and still recovering from that in the state of Florida. And then we turn around and we have Nicole come and hit us. As far as people coming and doing tree work and things like that in your home, and this is a me question,
Yeah.
but I'm sure other people have had this too. And you do have the random roof inspectors and the random
Oh, yeah.
tree people. And hey, we're doing some work down the street at Barbara's house, and you have any, and it's like, yeah, I do. I have that one low hanging branch. It's nothing major, but man, it sure would be nice for them to take it down. Would you be on the hook if say you didn't do your due diligence and ask them, do you have your business license? May I see your proof of insurance? Which probably 95% of us probably don't do, which you should
Yeah.
do. If they were to get hurt, or if they were to cut that branch down and it swung the wrong way and it took out your kid's window or something, is that now on the owner because you didn't ask for proper stuff, or would they be on the hook for that?
Well, they may still be on the hook for it if they're negligent in cutting down the tree or something like that. But if they don't have insurance, if they're not licensed, good luck, even tracking them down or finding who they are a lot of times.
Right.
Let alone getting them to pay for it if they're not a reputable company. But even worse, they drop that thing on somebody or hurt somebody, or even one of their workers gets hurt on your property, and now their worker's trying to sue you. That's why you want to make sure, it's a little bit of paranoia, I'm sure, but that's what law school kind of teaches us is what's going to happen in the worst case scenario.
What
here.
if, right?
So everything we're analyzing worst case scenario, because that's typically what comes through our doors when things didn't go to plan. So that's why you want to make sure that, they're properly licensed, they have insurance, and ask for that proof. There's so many, if you lived in Florida long enough, there's all these kind of flyby companies, storm
Oh, yeah.
chasers, whatever you want to call them. They'll come around your neighborhood. Hey, hey, we're in the neighborhood today. We have our machinery out here. We can give you a discount, so on and so forth. I still wonder if that's even true or not, if that's just a sales pitch at this
Right.
point.
Yeah. You want to, who's Barbara? And how have I not met Barbara?
Right. Yeah. But anyways, you always want to make sure they're properly licensed, properly insured, because hey, they damage your property. They, take their bulldozer over your driveway and crush it, which I've seen happen before.
Right. Yeah.
There's a million things that can go wrong. If something goes wrong, you want to make sure that, hey, there's somebody who's going to be there to pay for the damage that they caused if this in fact happens.
And it's amazing with technology now, with like Ring and different things like that, where you can see who's coming to your door. Because back in the day before Ring, you had no idea how many people were randomly knocking on your door. It's crazy how many just random tree companies and roof companies are out there that,
Oh, yeah.
they don't even have a business card. They just wrote it on the back of the, hey, it's Billy, if you need some tree work done, on the back of his fast food receipt. They cram it on your door. It's like, really, this is how we're doing business? But
Yeah.
they want to offer you the great deal, and it's convenient. It's like, yeah, actually that has been bothering me. So I always wondered that, because I've had so many, and I do have a lot of trees in my yard.
Yeah.
Like, if I get this guy just to do for 200 and this guy to do 2, it'll all be done eventually, but you run that risk, and I don't think I want to run that risk.
Yeah. I remember a long time ago, somebody left one of those things on my door, and I called them on like a Sunday, and like 30 minutes later they were there, and they smelled like they just had left the bar.
Oh God.
And I was like, and they, hard sales pitch, really pushing you. I was like, we'll think about this, yada,
Right.
yada. But that's typically a red flag. you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. You smell like bourbon and you want to put a chainsaw in your hand.
Right.
Not a good combination.
Yeah.
Nope, not at all. All right, you are listening to the DeWitt Law Review right here on 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk. Mo, what's the best way if somebody has a question and they want to find out if this is something that you guys cover here? What's the best way for people to ask you questions about furthering, getting some law advice outside of just being on the radio?
Well, you can always give our office a call, 1-800-DeWitt-LAW, 1-800-339-4885. There's people who answer that line 24 hours a day. We may not be available, obviously, but they'll set you up with an appointment to talk to somebody. And of course, if it's not something that we handle, not something that we can personally help you with, we do have a network of attorneys that we work with, and we'll try to get you into good hands and try to get you a referral over to somebody who can help you. So yeah, that's probably the best way to, just give us a call, let us know what's going on, and we'll try to point you in the right direction.
And if you do have a question, like some of these emails that we're getting to from listeners today that listen to the show every Sunday, you can always ask your question, and you can remain anonymous too if you want. You can send that email and your question or comment to ask@DeWitt Law, DEWITT law.com. Again, it's ask@DeWittLaw.com. Or you can call and leave it a voicemail. And again, you can remain anonymous on that too. If you've got a question, we can play your call over the air, and then Mo can give you some advice. 407-53-MOSES, 407-53-MOSES. You are listening to the DeWitt Law Review right here on 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk. Got some questions about car insurance coming up, and Ross wants to know if my wife leaves me, he wants to talk about some money. That's all on the way right here on DeWitt Law Review on 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk.
So I want to show you something. Here, come closer.
See this letter here? This letter offered for our client to settle for $10,000 back in May of 2021. We just got this client $200,000 for that same accident. He didn't want to take the $10,000, and rightfully so, because the insurance company was offering him pennies on the dollar. Oftentimes, clients get impatient, but in this case, it was worth the wait and worth to fight the insurance company to get what he deserved. Injured on the go? Just call Mo.
Welcome back to the DeWitt Law Review on 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk. My name is Jay Edwards here with Mo DeWitt of the DeWitt Law Firm. For your questions, if you've got one, you want some legal advice, you can send an email to ask@dewittlaw.com. You can also call their office anytime at 1-800-DeWitt-Law. That's 1-800-DEWITT Law. Or if you want to send a voicemail, you can ask your question, if that's easier, 407-53 Moses. Mo is here answering your questions, discussing the latest issues legally affecting the citizens of Central Florida. And Ross has a question for you, Mo. He says, hey, Mo, if my wife left me, is she entitled to any of my pension when she receives the same amount in disability?
So, yeah, Ross probably isn't going to like my answer here, but basically the rule of thumb is anything that was acquired during the marriage is split 50-50. So, assuming that his pension was acquired during the marriage, 100% during the marriage, the wife would be entitled to half of those pension payments. And she doesn't get a lump sum. She gets half of the payments because that was acquired during the marriage. So typically you have to do what's called a quadro, qualified domestic relations order. That basically alerts the plan administrator for the pension and says, hey, this percentage is going to be sent to the wife from here on out. If the entire thing wasn't acquired during the marriage, then it would be, whatever percentage was marital. So if they were married 10 years, but 5 years of that, was when he acquired the pension, then she would be entitled to 25% of the pension because it was 50% from the marriage, and then she's entitled to half, so she gets 25% of whatever those payments are. So that's how you analyze the pension. Now, with the disability payments, they're a little different. So disability payments are basically considered income for alimony purposes. There's no fixed asset that's behind it.
Okay.
Even though, logically this may not make sense, but this is the way the court looks at it is, a pension is basically a fixed asset. You worked at 10 years at a company. Mm-hmm. They said, hey, you're going to get a pension where after the age of 65, you get paid $3,000 a month or whatever it is. Disability payments, there's no real fixed asset behind that. It's just ongoing. It's an ongoing income stream.
Right. Okay.
So the court's going to look at those disability payments and say, we're going to use those for alimony purposes. So, she may not have a claim for alimony if, obviously we'd have to look at the underlying financial aspects, but, if she's receiving ongoing income for disability payments, that may offset any alimony claim she may have. But ultimately, the pension is, considered an asset. It's part of equitable distribution. So just because she receives disability payments, it's not going to offset whatever percentage of the pension she would be entitled to receive.
So it's just going to add to it.
It's just going to add to it. Now, that being said, there are always, if you look at the overall financial picture here, there may be some horse trading that can occur where you can, barter or bargain, say, hey, I won't touch your asset here if you don't touch my pension here, and so on and so forth. So, in the grand scheme of negotiations, there's always things that you can do. Like I say, kind of, horse trade a little bit. But if we're talking about what a judge can do, a judge can only really do limited things. They're limited by the statute, they're limited by case law. And so if they're looking at it, basically, most likely they're going to have to distribute the pension pursuant to the marital portion and then treat those disability payments as income to the wife. And one's not going to necessarily offset the other.
Ross right now is going, oh, man.
another some more bad news for a listener, unfortunately.
I know, but at least you're saving them the time by giving them, some legal advice.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of pride myself on that, where I think sometimes attorneys try to hype themselves up and say, hey, we're going to do a great job for you. We're going to get you this, this, and this. The law is what the law is.
Right.
No matter how great the attorney is, no matter how great the argument is, typically you're still kind of constrained to the limits of the law. And there's only so much you can do on certain items. Yeah, other items have more discretion. We've talked about alimony before. The court has much more discretion when it comes to alimony. But with equitable distribution, it's pretty much hard and fast rule. anything acquired during the marriage is going to be split 50-50. There's some minor exceptions with, inheritances and things like that. But otherwise, it's pretty much split 50-50. There's no real way around that.
Okay, so leading in our next segment, I have a question for you about the whole 50-50 thing.
All right.
I think maybe I found a loophole.
All right, let's hear it.
And Mo's going to set me straight here in just a minute. You are listening to the DeWitt Law Review on 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the DeWitt Law Review on 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk. My name is Jay Edwards, here with Mo DeWitt of the DeWitt Law Firm. Every Sunday, Mo's answering your questions. We are discussing the latest legal issues affecting the citizens of Central Florida. All right, we've got an opportunity for you to win something very cool, and it's sitting in my hand as we speak right now. We'll get to that in just a second. But Mo, I think I'm gonna stump you here. I'm totally not gonna stump you. But I just thought of something when you were talking about, divorce and couples and 50-50 and things like that and splitting things up. Okay, so I have friends that have her account, his account, and then they have this is our marriage account.
Right.
They pay the mortgage out of that and stuff like. But when we go out to dinner, he'll offer to buy her. She'll be like, "No, you got it last time. We'll take it out." So what happens in that situation? Say that couple splits up. Is her account still her account, and is his account his account? And then they only divide up the we're married account.
So it's funny you asked that question, because sometimes
I thought he was going to say this is a great question.
But a lot of times I'll do consults and I'll say, okay, what kind of assets do you guys have together?
Right.
And they'll say everything's separate. I have my stuff in my name. She has her stuff in her name. But unless there's a prenuptial agreement, it doesn't matter if it's in your name or her name. It's all marital. Anything that was acquired during the marriage is still all marital. The only time that changes is, again, if it's an inheritance or something that's an exception, or if you have a prenuptial agreement. And so, for people out there listening, if you do receive an inheritance and you're married, you always want to keep that in a separate account with only your name on it, because once you put that into an account with both names on it, it becomes marital. But that's one of the exceptions where if it's in just your account with just your name on it, an inheritance is non-marital property. But as soon as you move it into a joint account, that can all change. So you want to be very careful of that.
What if, say, it was $500,000 and you put $100,000 of it into the our account and kept 400 out because you put some of it in there? Is it now all considered, or just that $100,000?
Just the $100,000 would basically be considered a gift to the marriage. So,
okay.
So once it's in there, that $100,000 is gone. It's no longer non-marital. That's now marital property.
So when you go and you keep it separately, and your spouse asks you, "Why are you keeping it separately?" that could also.
It's my money. It's my inheritance.
Right.
But,
Right. My mom or my dad or my grandparents worked hard for that. Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it separate.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of what I happen to have here in my hand, and Mo, with the holidays right around the corner, has generously said, if you want a copy of this, he's going to give it to you. This is a national bestseller, DeWitt's Divorce Guide from Mo DeWitt. Your book is here. It's out.
Yep.
It's ready to go.
Just came out a few days ago. It's on Amazon. It's, on all the, does anyone else sell books besides Amazon these days? But it's on Amazon.
Barnes & Noble, all that good stuff, right?
It's out there. So yeah, just came out. It's DeWitt's Divorce Guide. So it kind of, walks you through kind of everything you'd want to know about a divorce. It's one of those things where we do it every day. But hopefully, if you ever go through it, you're doing it once in a lifetime. And so kind of gives you an idea of what to expect, what the steps are, what, the pitfalls can be, all that kind of stuff, just to kind of educate yourself through the process. Cause I'm big on education. I think that makes things a lot better when you're going through something like that. That can be a dark and scary time. Kind of knowing what you're getting into can really make it much easier and much smoother.
I mean, the more, absolutely. The more you know with anything in life,
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Educate yourself with it and with this book. And if you call and you want to leave a voicemail with your name, your mailing address, and just make sure you spell it out, 407-53-MOSES, 407-53-MOSES, or send an email with who you are and your mailing address, ask@dewittlaw.com. It's ask@dewittlaw.com. and Mo will send you a copy of the book.
Yeah, yeah, we'll mail you a copy on over, and hopefully you enjoy it, and hopefully it provides some information, some knowledge out there.
Got a friend of mine that's going through, and I might just
Give them a
take
copy.
this copy with
There
me.
you go.
Well, here's what on the back cover, tabloids, TV shows portray divorce as a horror story, offering up the worst case scenarios to entertain or frighten us. But the reality of divorce is often quite different. While the process is never pleasant or fun, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I mean, man, talk about if somebody is just about to jump into this, it's got to be scary. But hearing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, you two will get through this, with great help. I mean,
Yeah, and I mean there definitely are those horror stories out there. Those are few and far between, frankly. And I think being educated can kind of help you avoid those sometimes. So yeah, that's part of the reason for the book. So hopefully it will help some people out there.
with the holidays coming up, and knowing divorce well, I've always wondered this is, and again, going back to my friend who's about to celebrate his first Thanksgiving without his kids.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so, how do the courts decide that? Because I know they always go on what's the best, and I've learned this from you.
Right.
What's the best interest of the children? How do they go and decide who's going to get the kids on Thanksgiving or Christmas or their birthdays?
So assuming that it's in the children's best interest to spend time with both parents, which in most cases it is,
Right.
you're going to create a holiday schedule. So, typically if, if the mom has Thanksgiving this year, then dad's going to have Christmas this year. So there's kind of certain holidays where you don't want both in the same year because they're kind of the bigger holidays.
Right.
So, there's the regular time sharing schedule, and then there's the holiday time sharing schedule that's going to supersede the regular time sharing schedule. So, we're going to look at Thanksgiving and decide, okay, is it going to be Thanksgiving Day or is it going to be Thanksgiving break? Well, if mom has that this year, then dad's going to get that next year, and dad's also going to get Christmas this year, and vice versa. So
Okay.
if dad has it next year, then mom's getting Christmas next year. And then you have to look at the Christmas break as well. I'm assuming the kids are in school, obviously. So, do you split the Christmas break in half? It's usually about 2 weeks or so where, dad takes the first week, mom takes the second week, or do you carve out the days? Do you say, okay, we're going to maybe follow the regular time sharing schedule for Christmas break, but hey, mom gets Christmas Eve until 8 p.m. and then dad picks up the kids at 8 p.m. and dad gets Christmas Day. There's all sorts of different things that you can do there, but you want to make sure that it's balanced as much as possible. And then of course, certain families travel for holidays, so then you have to kind of account for that.
Yeah,
You
like we
know,
want to go up to Minnesota for 2 weeks for Christmas break, and one parent gets left behind.
right. So then you're going to say, okay, well, if mom's going up to Minnesota for 2 weeks this year, then dad gets the 2 weeks next year. And then, in the same year, maybe dad gets the full Thanksgiving break so that he can travel, or maybe you trade off a spring break or something like that. So, you kind of have to craft this holiday schedule, very personalized to the family. There's kind of a no one size fits all for any family because everybody has different needs, motivations, traditions, all that kind of stuff. I've had people before who say, Christmas Eve is the most important holiday to me. I do not care anything about Christmas Day.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's just depending what your family traditions are. But yeah, people kind of say, what's the standard? Well, there is no real standard. There's things that we kind of look at in each case. So I guess you can consider those standards, but you really have to kind of sit down and think that through. And again, that's kind of what the book's there for, because a lot of these things you may not really think of, may not consider. But again, when we're doing this all the time, these are the things that come up. These are the issues that come up. And so that's kind of how we deal with them.
So it's never just automatically, all right, if dad gets Thanksgiving, mom automatically gets Christmas. It's pretty much case by case, family by family.
It is, but again, most judges wouldn't say, "Hey, Dad, you get." Most experienced judges who know what they're doing, wouldn't say, "Dad, you're going to get every holiday this year. Mom, you're going to get every holiday next year," because that's just not really fair and balanced to the kids. So that can be difficult to say. This parent, you're going to sit out for holidays for an entire year. That just doesn't make any sense, obviously.
How hard, seriously, this is no joke. On my bucket list is I want to write a children's book.
Okay.
Obviously, way different than writing DeWitt's divorce guide.
Yeah.
How hard was it for you to, because it's not huge, and I know you probably wanted to keep it just to educate people. You
Right.
didn't want to overwhelm them with a big law book.
Yeah.
So how hard is it with all the knowledge that you have in your head and all the cases that you've dealt with personally or heard of or seen of to consolidate this and get it down to 110 plus pages or so of the best information?
I mean, I probably rewrote that about 5
Did you
times.
really? When'd you start it?
About 4 years ago.
Wow.
Not even joking. I mean, I'd come back and forth to it,
Right.
obviously. I wrote a lot of it on planes when I was traveling and stuff like that. But yeah, you write something and then you go, for me, you just go way too in depth and then you go, okay, we have to, if I'm a reader, I'm going to fall asleep if I'm giving a full analysis on
Right.
the statutory history of this, so on and so forth. So then you have to kind of, okay, well, let's boil this down. What's the most important stuff? So kind of start long-winded and then kind of boil it down as much as possible.
Do you have you know how like sometimes artists will have a favorite track on a CD or parents say that they have a favorite kid or won't admit to it? Is there a chapter in here that I know you've got to be extremely proud of the entire thing, but is there, if somebody were to pick it up and you were to say, "Listen, don't miss chapter 6." Is there a section in here that's just you're so proud of?
Well, they're all my babies, but um, I mean, honestly, it is broken down by chapter, but different chapters are going to be important to different people depending on what your situation is, right? So there's a chapter that talks about how you distribute property, how you deal with businesses in a divorce, how you deal with children. So it's really just personalized to, you're going to want, depending on your situation, if you have kids, if you don't have kids, if you have a family business, if you have, if your wife or husband is seeking alimony, you can just flip to that chapter and read through it.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that's really probably the best way to deal with it because not everything applies to everybody, obviously.
Well, I know the holidays are right around the corner, and we got football on later on today.
Yep.
Some Sunday football. But do you want to stay and record, and we can do Mo's book on tape?
Absolutely.
That way, you just,
Who doesn't want to hear this voice for 8 hours?
Hey, listen, everybody's going on the holidays. They're gonna be traveling up I-95 going for
Might
Thanksgiving.
put them right to sleep. Don't listen while driving. Safety.
Again, some of the stuff on the back, there is light at the end of the tunnel. When you read it, you will learn what to prepare for before meeting with an attorney, how to find the right attorney for you, how to navigate discussions of child custody and child support, when mediation is the best option and when a trial might prove necessary, and also how to avoid post-divorce headaches and so much more. Again, it is DeWitt's Divorce Guide by Mo DeWitt, your guide to divorce here in the state of Florida. And again, he generously offered, if you'd like a copy of the book, ask at dewittlaw.com. You can send your information there with your mailing address and who you are, or you can also call and leave it on 407-53 Moses, 407-53 Moses. We've got our Mo Pro Tip of the Week coming up in just a few minutes. But Mo, I noticed that here we have an official letter that came in
Oh, yeah.
from the one and only Grant Malloy, the Seminole County Clerk of the Circuit Court and Comptroller. Did I say that right? Controller. It's just Controller, right?
Comptroller.
Is it Comptroller? Okay. He said, hey, Mo, I heard on your radio show just recently, a caller mentioned that he signed up for our free property fraud alert, and he asked you what to do if you found out that fraud had occurred, and you answered his question very well. Please feel free to let them know that our system, promote our system to your clients or listeners. It's easy to find on our website at seminolclerk.org. And if you just click on the property fraud alert icon at the bottom, it will take you to a link.
Yeah. Great information there. I appreciate Grant writing in. And we're going to try to see if we can get him on the show and tell us a little bit more about that as well. Because it's a pretty cool little system they had. And obviously we have listeners who are concerned about it. So, why not get the information from the horse's mouth?
There you go. And you see,
not calling Grant a horse, but
see,
you know what I mean.
It just goes to show you never know who's listening.
Exactly.
On a Sunday. All right. Next question for you is, and it completely just escaped my brain. And this was, you end up getting an email from an attorney saying that we're putting a lien on your house because you haven't paid your homeowners or whatever, and it's a rental property, and you're not, I guess the emails or the bills were going still to that house, and maybe though the people that were there weren't forwarding them to you. I know you're probably not off the hook because you probably should have them going to your house, but can they actually take your house for not paying your homeowners dues? And what kind of recourse, like, do you have to pay their quote unquote attorney's fees and things like that? Or do you risk losing your home?
So if you live in a community that has, homeowners association assessments and you don't pay them, the statute in Florida is very heavily favors homeowners associations and their enforcement of those assessments.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, typically they can not only hit you for the assessments, but they can also get you to pay anything that's incurred in the collection of those assessments, attorney's fees, filing fees, and those can add up quickly. So if you do get a delinquent notice, you want to look at it quickly, make sure it's legitimate, of course, and then try to take care of it as soon as possible because they can also put late fees on those as well.
Gotcha.
And that is one of the exceptions. They can actually foreclose on the home and sell the home for failing to pay those assessments. So you want to take it seriously. If something's comes up like that, consult an attorney if you need to, but you want to take care of that sooner rather than later. Those are cases that do not get better with age, and the bills just continue to pile up.
It's one of those things you accidentally overlook, and next thing you know, you find yourself in hot water.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can happen. And of course, homeowners associations do make mistakes on those ledgers as well. And that's where a lot of disputes come up. But you want to try to tackle that as soon as possible because, like I say, as soon as the attorneys get involved, as soon as those fees start piling up, it becomes much more difficult to settle and resolve those cases amicably.
Very good. All right. You're listening to the DeWitt Law Review right here on 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk. Mo DeWitt here with the DeWitt Law Firm. If you've got a question, you can send it to ask@dewittlaw.com. You can call 407-53-MOSES and leave a voicemail right there. Or if you do need some legal advice and you need some help, 1-800-DeWitt-LAW. You can call that number anytime and reach anybody here. They'll help you out at the DeWitt Law Firm. We'll be back with our Mo Pro Tip of the Week coming up in just a few minutes. It's the DeWitt Law Review on 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk.
Oh, hey there. I was just staring at this check that we just got for $20,000 for a guy who was hit by a car while riding on his one wheel. The initial offer in this case was just over $3,700. That's well over 6 times the initial offer. And that's why you call Mo.
Welcome back to the DeWitt Law Review on 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk. Mo DeWitt of the DeWitt Law Firm is here giving you your legal advice and affecting the citizens of Central Florida. My name is Jay Edwards. If you do have one of those questions, you can send it to ask@dewittlaw.com, ask@dewittlaw.com, spelled DEWITT. Or you can also call and leave a voicemail at 407-53-MOSES. We will get to our Mo Pro Tip of the Week in just a second, but got one more question. Hey, Mo, got laid off from a job after about 2 weeks, and now they're withholding my money. They won't give me my check, even though it was, I worked there for a solid 2 weeks and got some money coming to me, but they won't give me my money. Can they withhold this from me?
So assuming that you're a W-2 employee and that you are paid hourly or however you were paid, they still have to pay you, even if they terminated you for cause. If you work the hours, it can be a wage and hour violation.
Okay, so even if you crash the company car into a building drunk or whatever, they still have to pay you.
They still have to pay you for the hours. Now they can then sue you for whatever you owe them for the damage, obviously. Okay. But typically they can't just unilaterally take it out of your check, especially without some sort of justification or something in writing. In this case, it sounds like the person was just working there. There's some sort of dispute between them and the employer. And the employer decided, hey, I don't want to pay this person. Well, you can't do that. So, you can sue that person for the wage and hour or for the wages owed. And you can also get attorney's fees for that. So there is an attorney's fees provision in Florida that allows you, even if it's, $50, $100, whatever it is, you can sue them for that plus your attorney's fees. And they could have to pay that if you prevail on that action. So, as an employer, obviously, you want to be cautious of that. As an employee, it gives you some leverage to go after them to get the money that you're owed. If you're an independent contractor or something like that, that could lead to some issues. Also, if this is your first paycheck and you don't have anything in writing showing how much you were to be paid, you could have some issues there, proving what you were entitled to be paid. If there's nothing in writing, no email saying, hey, we're hiring you at this hourly rate or this annual salary or whatever it may be, it's just a proof issue there. But then it would just come down to your testimony, basically. But if they paid you nothing, then obviously that's not only a wage and hour, it's a wage and hour violation for not paying you minimum wage, essentially. So that can also be a federal lawsuit as well.
Gotcha. So if you didn't agree to, $17 an hour or $22 an hour, it would just come down to Florida's minimum wage at the minimum?
Well, at the minimum. So
Okay.
What I'm saying is, under federal law, we have a minimum wage, where basically there's a minimum wage in Florida, a minimum wage federally.
Okay, I gotcha.
And so if they didn't pay you that minimum wage, and they paid you nothing, you can sue them for violating the minimum wage law. So usually on minimum wage lawsuits, we see cases where, they're working longer hours than they're supposed to and not getting paid for certain hours. But here it's pretty clear they got paid nothing.
Okay.
So, you're legally at least entitled to minimum wage. So yeah, there's a number of issues here that could arise.
Gotcha. All right, so we got a couple of minutes here. Let's get to our Mo Pro Tip of the Week.
Well, we'll make this one self-serving once again. And it's just, look, if you know anybody out there who's going through a divorce, going through a difficult time, thinking about a divorce, tell them about the book. Go get the book. Like Jay said, send us an email, askask@dewitlaw.com, and we'll be happy to send you a copy absolutely free. But I spent a lot of time writing this book because I think it will be helpful for people. I know it's a dark and scary time, and I think the best way to get through that is to educate yourself about the process. Don't give it to your spouse as a holiday present. That's a bad idea. There's 2 pro tips in one for you.
Right. Yes.
But I think, look, nobody ever anticipates going through a divorce. Obviously, when you get married, you're not thinking you're going to end up getting a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do, it can be difficult. There's a lot to deal with. There's a lot to unpack there. It can be scary. It can be frustrating. There's a number of emotions that obviously come along with divorce. So just kind of knowing what to expect, how things are going to shake out or potentially shake out. That's what the book's all about. So again, if you want a copy, send us an email, askask@dewitlaw.com. Include your name and address. We're happy to send you a copy, or you can leave us a voicemail at 407-536-6737.
All right. And also you can get it on Amazon if you want to get your hands on it right now. It is called DeWitt's Divorce Guide by Mo DeWitt, your guide to divorce in Florida. We'll be back next week. You are listening to the DeWitt Law Review right here on 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's News and Talk.
About a year ago, I was in a really bad accident. I got my hand caught in a saw and I lost my thumb. Luckily, the doctors were able to put everything back together. Originally, we reached out to other firms to take my case and nobody would help us. But when we called Mr. DeWitt and his team, they were there to help through the whole thing. I'm extremely happy with the results, extremely happy with the result. It was an easy process. They made it as easy as possible, and we got the best possible result. Injured on the go? Just call Mo.